Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Progress America Unfiltered. We are here in celebration and remembrance of International Day of Transgender Visibility coming up this Friday, March 31st, 2023, to talk a little bit about what allyship means for the transgender community, and particularly a few years that have been so challenging, damaging, and all the need to rally for this community. We've seen bills that target transgender people just kind of up and up the past few years, led by Republicans throughout the country to really try to push us back, push people into the shadows, and really just has been unbelievably damaging. But through this, we've seen the trans community lead and be so strong in their efforts to protect themselves, to protect their community. And I invited Natalie here today, along with Jocelyn, to talk to us a little bit about what's going on for the transgender community, specifically in regards to International Day of Transgender Visibility. And Natalie is one of the people who run the Marsha P. Johnson Fan Club, which is a youth-run organization raising money for the transgender community and organizations that serve it, which is absolutely phenomenal. And through that, I'm going to pass it to Natalie to give us a little foyer into this hot topic.
Thank you, Rhett. Very happy to be here. Very happy to be representing the MPJ Fan Club in the memory of Marsha Pay It No Mind Johnson. For those of you who may not know, she is one of the pioneers of the gay rights movement, one of the lead voices in the fight for Stonewall, and she was also an excellent poet and very sweet, sentimental human being. And I'm very happy to be here today in her memory. The Marsha, just to give you a little background on the Marsha P. Johnson Fan Club, anyone is welcome to join our little fundraising events. We are currently fundraising for the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network Fund, and the Knights and Orchard Society, which is an organizing group in the South ran by Black trans men. All of the proceeds go to these organizations. So follow us on Instagram at MPJ Fan Club to stay in touch with what we got going on.
Yeah, awesome, Natalie. I think that's a really great organization, and it's something that you incubated with one of the organizations that we met in called Blue Future. And Blue Future shares a similar goal in helping mobilize youth voter turnout across the country. Really amazing stuff. And I was so happy to meet you, Natalie, there in that movement. It was honestly, for viewers at home, it was like during the ongoing pandemic, just like sitting on Zoom in the need for good community and the need to make our voices heard in this democracy of ours. Natalie and I were regional directors of Blue Future, and it was so fun. And I remember like some of the best times I had in the pandemic were sitting in front of my Zoom talking to Natalie. Natalie, thanks for keeping me going throughout the pandemic and for all your work with the MPJ Fan Club. It's really amazing to see what you've been able to do and keep up with that organization for sure.
Of course.
And so, Jocelyn, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what do you think is going on with these bills that are targeting the trans community through the country? Like, what do you think the Republicans are aiming to get out of this? What do you think are the ramifications of it? Do you have anything that you think that our viewers at home should think about?
Yeah, Republicans are passing increasingly extreme legislative measures, or introducing them, I should say, not really with the intent of forming new laws, which aren't even realistically enforceable a lot of the time, but for stirring up the bigotry in their base. They know what they're doing. They're misconstruing what it means to be trans in this country. They're lying about a community that has always existed and always been, I don't even know how to do justice to the amount of violence the trans community has always endured in the West. Not in other communities necessarily, which is a different conversation, but in the Western Christian world, queer and trans people have never been safe. And that is still true today. The difference is that a lot of these groups have been legally protected, and that's something Republicans are trying to take away. They want the hate crimes to go up. They want the red meat of their base to get energetic and excited. And they want it to be a world where people do not feel safe unless they are either white men or married to white men in a heterosexual, I'm just
Union.
gonna leave my thoughts on that.
For
Of
sure.
life. No hate to the heterosexual community, many of whom I'm sure are good people.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. But Jocelyn, you bring up some really great points for sure about just like how the right wing, the extremists are using the trans community as something to rally against, to fundraise off of. And maybe they don't even have intention of getting these bills passed. I mean, they don't believe that these bills are necessary for the functioning of our society, but they know that the power that they have can be used to leverage against a community that already faces marginalization in our country. And it's so frightening because what they're doing is they're literally saying, okay, hate is a currency that can literally enrich me politically, it can enrich me financially. And this is what they're trying to do in order to hold on to power, expand their power, and push people into even more vulnerable positions. It is so heartbreaking, and it's just so indicative of what is going on in our country right now with these right-wing extremists pushing further to the right in the name of the Republican Party.
I mean, that's a great point, Rhett. And I think one thing I really want to highlight is that the attacks on the trans community are essentially attacks against all of humanity. This idea of biological determinism, which is what a lot of right-wing people are using to justify their very hateful logic, argues that human behavior and identity are determined by biological factors. And when we put people in these very narrow spaces and we don't allow the spectrum of gender fluidity to flourish, we are hurting everyone. We're hurting, especially the trans community. But biological determinism has been the logic used to support racism, sexism, eugenics in the past. And if we're not careful and we don't push against it and we don't call it out for what it is, then history is going to continue to repeat itself. Jocelyn, I really liked what you said about how trans people have always been here. There has been across every culture some recording of the presence of trans people. So this idea that it's a trend, it's something new, that is that is untrue, it's unfair. And this is the reason why transgender people are 4 times more likely to experience violent incidents, including sexual assault, aggravated assault, than cisgender people. So this idea that human beings have to be a certain way is resulting in violence. There's discrimination in housing, in the workplace, in the medical field. I personally have friends who are hoarding their hormones because they don't know if they're going to be taken away soon. So this is a really scary time, and I think it's really important for cisgender people to kind of step up to the plate right now. I want to talk about allyship, what it means to be a good ally to the trans community while all of this is happening. I want to say that being an ally is an understanding that speaking out for these issues, even if you don't necessarily say the right things all the time, is important. I really want to stress this idea that imperfect action is better than perfect inaction, and the cisgender community has a responsibility to begin or continue an education process that encourages an unlearning of the gender binary that we have all been socialized to believe in since we were little. And as we learn more about it, we can see how harmful it is, not only just to the trans community, which is suffering from, again, housing discrimination, but also like suicide is a very real prominent issue within the trans community. When you're telling people that when they're receiving messages from all over that their way of living is wrong, it's not a surprise that 54% of trans people of color, for example, have attempted suicide, and this is compared to the 1.6% of the general population which attempts suicide. So the rates of transgender attempts, especially transgender people of color, are exponentially higher, and that's because we live in a very hateful society. Heartbreakingly, the life expectancy for trans people is 30 to 35 years old. This is completely unacceptable. So right now, we are seeing a world that is legislatively attacking on a legislative level, on a social level. And again, it's not just the responsibility of trans people to lead this fight. They need people who are not being directly impacted by this legislation to also voice their opposition to it. We need to build a coalition, and hopefully that's what we're trying to do here today.
Yeah, and so Natalie, you sent me something on Instagram last night, and I really wanted you to have a chance to talk about it now. So you mentioned the need for action. You mentioned how inaction is something that far too many people find comfort in. And I wanted to ask you, what is that action, that call to action that you shared with me yesterday, and how can people at home get involved in the fight to protect the trans community?
Yes, so one of my favorite content creators is Alok the Menon. We could leave the at somewhere around, but they're a really amazing creator, and they're always flagging important issues. And right now, they're supporting this campaign by the Gate.org to call upon social media platforms to #StopHate towards trans and gender diverse people around the world, because right now a study done of trans and gender nonconforming people found that 88% of respondents agree that social media platforms are primary means for anti-gender mobilization. So what they're trying to do is, the Gate organization is trying to hold TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. accountable for the anti-gender rhetoric that is so prevalent. So please mosey on over to the Gate.org, check out their website. The campaign is on the website right there.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely put that in the description of this video. And I think that's a really good call to action. There certainly will be more calls to action as well. So always pay attention to those when you see them on social media. Of course, first and foremost, always prioritizing the voices of the trans community when they call you to action, when they put things out there that say, hey, I need support on this. Hey, share this message. Hey, don't post anything on Instagram. Amplify this instead. Amplify the voices that are out there for sure. And that applies to this video. That applies to all content on social media. As part of what part of Natalie mentioned is allyship. So making sure that we're not just allies, we're co-conspirators in the fight for trans rights, trans justice, and everything. So Jocelyn, Natalie, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the continued work that both of you are doing. And also for viewers at home, thanks for joining us in this fight. And we really appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great day. And also, happy International Transgender Day of Visibility. Have a great day, everyone. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all those good things. And we will see you all soon here at Progress America Unfiltered. Bye-bye.